On balance, the way I think about it is subject to timing differences. If gold performs the way I expect, silver is along for the ride. So you'll get to $40 silver, and sooner than later you'll get to put it this way: the world of $10,000 gold is the world of $100 silver. Yeah, I've for a long time, go 5 or 6 years, I had I said gold could go to $10,000 an ounce, and recently I revised that upward to, you do the math, you can update it, but kind of $25,000 an ounce. I should explain what that is. It's not well, it will get there, but it's not a hard forecast like, buy gold because it's going to $10,000 an ounce. Instead, it's an expression of it answers a question. The question is, what would the dollar price of gold have to be in order to have the dollar backed by gold? In other words, whether you want a hard gold standard or soft gold standard or any kind of gold reference, why are we not in that system? And what would the price of gold have to be in order to be in that system? And the math is fairly simple. You can do calculus, but this is kind of 7th grade math, or at least where I went to school. So basically, take the money supply, and right away you run into problems. Everyone thinks they know what money is. Well, no, the Fed doesn't know what money is. They have M0, M1, M2. They have all. Whenever you see 5 different measures of money supply, it tells you right away that the Fed doesn't even know what money is. But anyway, I use M1. M0 is base money. That's the money the Fed prints, but it doesn't mean very much because they print it by buying securities from dealers, and the dealer sends in the 10-year notes or 5-year notes, and the Fed pays for the securities with cash. And that money does come out of thin air. That's not just a metaphor. It does come out of thin air, and they pay the banks. The question is, what do the banks do with it? They give it back to the Fed in the form of excess reserves. So all you're really doing, you're expanding both sides of the balance sheet. You're piling on Treasury securities, and you're piling up liabilities in the form of excess reserves. But that money is sterilized. It's not doing anything. No one's getting to spend it. There's no velocity. The money that does matter, the money that does drive the economy, doesn't come from the Federal Reserve. It comes from the commercial banks, and that's M1. It includes bank deposits and so forth. So I use M1, and then we know the amount of gold the government has, 8,133 metric tons. People go, it's all in Fort Knox. Actually, it's not. About half of it's, a little less than half is in Fort Knox. The rest is at West Point. There's a vault there. Can't disclose the location, but it's there. And people ask me all the time, say, "Hey Jim, who owns the gold? Is it the Treasury or the Fed?" And I say it's the Army, because they're both Army bases. I mean, West Point and Fort Knox are both. I mean, the legal answer is the Treasury owns it, but it's stored in Army bases. So M2, I don't know the number off the top, or M1, sorry, I don't know the number off the top of my head. You can just go to the Fed website. And 8,133 metric tons, break it down by ounces, divide one by the other, and you, one more assumption. How much gold backing do you want? Now, the hard shell Austrians will say 100%, if it's not, it's leverage, or, it's not a solid standard. Historically, that's not true. Great Britain, backed up by the Royal Navy, ran a very successful gold standard in the 19th century. They had about 20% backing. At any given time, the Bank of England had about 20% backing for their notes. The United States used 40% backing until around the end of World War II, and then they went to 25%. And they ended up at zero by the late 1960s. But it was either 40% or 25%. So take your pick. And the British were about 20%. That's what you need to instill confidence. So my math is take M1, take 40% of M1. That's the dollar amount of gold you need to have a strong gold standard. Divide it by the number of ounces in 8,133 metric tons, and you get a number. And that number today is around $23,000. So, but it keeps going up, and the reason it keeps going up is that the gold supply is constant and the money supply keeps going up. So again, 5th grade math, you're going to get a larger and larger number of dollars per ounce in order to back up a higher dollar amount with the same amount of ounces. So it's about $23,000. So just to be clear, That's not saying that gold is going straight to $23,000 an ounce. That's saying if confidence in the dollar were undermined and you had to resort to gold to restore confidence, you can't just pick a number. If the number's too low, it's going to be highly deflationary, which is what happened in the late 1920s. So what would the number be? And the answer is around $23,000 an ounce. First of all, you're right. I spent a lot of time analyzing gold, not so much from, I do invest in gold mines. I've been in gold mines and know a lot about the production side of the business, but my main interest has always been gold as a monetary asset. The truth is gold's not good for much except money. I think it's the best form of money. But you say, well, what else can you use gold for? Well, jewelry. Well, okay, jewelry is just a form of wealth that you wear. You see an Indian bride draped in gold chains. It's beautiful looking. Yeah, but that's her dowry. That's her down payment on the house. That's the kid's college education. So jewelry is just a different way to store bullion. But so gold is not good for much except money. Silver is different. Silver is a precious metal. It can be a form of money, has been, and still is, but it has a lot of industrial input. So when it's an industrial input. So when you're analyzing silver, you've got the precious metals analysis on the one hand, but you have industrial input on the other. And that makes it tricky because if you're in a recession, let's say the price of gold is going up, silver will tag along. Silver will be along for the ride, and you're exactly right. It tends to lag and then it shoots up. But in a recession, silver is going to lag or even go down a little bit because of reduced industrial demand. So it's harder to analyze because you have to balance one against the other. On balance, the way I think about it is subject to timing differences. If gold performs the way I expect, silver is along for the ride. So you'll get to $40 silver, and sooner than later you'll get to put it this way: the world of $10,000 gold is the world of $100 silver. In terms of what you can do about it, you have to have part of your portfolio outside the digital realm. If the digital realm is automated, affected with AI, subject to all the processes we've been talking about, how do you dodge that bullet? Again, you can use cybernetics or whatever, but that's up to the governments and the regulators. The answer is have some assets that are non-digital: gold, silver, fine art, land, natural resources. There are a list of things where you actually own the thing. And it's, if it was safe storage, and there could be some carry costs and all that, that's all normal. But this is how Russia has survived U.S. sanctions. Elvira Nabiullina, who's the head of the Central Bank of Russia, in my view, she's the only central banker in the world who actually knows what she's doing. But over 10 years, and I warned the Pentagon about this in 2009, over 10 years, she put 25% of the Russian reserves in gold, physical bullion in safe storage inside Russia. And so when the U.S. froze the Russian assets, the U.S. froze about $300 billion of U.S. Treasury securities lawfully purchased by Russia, held in digital custody in Euroclear in Brussels. Most of them, or 2/3 of them anyway. Those have been frozen, and the U.S. is now in the process of stealing them to finance loans to Ukraine. Again, big topic. We'll leave that for another day. But the reason Russia is not wiped out, the reason the Russian economy is actually outperforming the U.S. economy right now, is partly because she put 25% of the assets in solid gold. And by the way, and as you know, you're an expert, the price of gold has doubled. Well, it's up 70% in the past 2 years and doubled in a slightly longer time frame. Russia has made as much money on the gold on a mark-to-market basis as they've suffered losses in the Treasury securities, because they've made over $50 billion of mark-to-market profits on their gold. But the point is, it's digital, so the U.S. can't touch it, can't freeze it, can't interdict it, etc. And those assets are good, and it's money good. So I recommend people have gold in their portfolios. I recommend 10%. Seasoned to taste. If you want more, that's fine.